We walk down the aisle, brimming with hope. We picture this lifetime of connection, unwavering support. But what if I told you that for many, maybe even most, even as they're saying, I do, there's this silent, hidden conflict already underway. Not like malice or anything, but more like unseen wounds, patterns nobody's really acknowledging. Today on The Deep Dive, our mission is to pull back that curtain. We want to uncover these, subtle, often insidious forces that, based on the research we've dug into, slowly but surely just erode love from the inside out. And this isn't about the usual stuff like, oh, we just grew apart. No, our sources really point to these deep psychological fractures, things most people don't even realize they're carrying, fractures that actively sabotage their closest relationships.
And that's exactly the warning, isn't it? The urgent warning sort of embedded in all this material. Love rarely dies in one big dramatic blow-up. Instead, what the studies show is it's often a slow, really agonizing bleed. It gives way to, consistent neglect, profound misunderstandings, trust just eroding bit by bit, and this fundamental failure, really, to face our own inner stuff, our own darkness. So this deep dive, it's going to confront some uncomfortable truths about why love, even when it feels so powerful, so real at the start, why it falters for so many. You really need to be prepared to look inward, because that's where the real battlefield often is, inside ourselves.
Okay, so let's unpack this first big one, the echoes of childhood trauma. Just imagine for a second that your first lessons, your earliest experiences of what love is, were somehow poisoned. Our research into developmental psychology, it shows this doesn't just hurt you back then, it actually literally rewires your nervous system. So if your childhood had, say, emotional neglect, or maybe things were really volatile, unpredictable, or constant criticism, maybe manipulation, your system learns to associate love, or what you thought was love, with suffering, or just profound inconsistency. And that familiar feeling, that pain, most paradoxically, can start to feel like home.
What's truly striking when you look at the behavioral patterns the research identifies, it's that you don't just remember that pain. Your subconscious actively works to recreate it. It's almost like a faulty GPS, right? Your emotional navigation got programmed with the wrong coordinates way back when, so it keeps leading you back to the same places in relationships. Familiar territory, but often painful territory. You find yourself drawn, almost magnetically, to partners who mirror those early wounds. And deep down, there's this belief, often unconscious, that this time you can finally fix what was broken way back then. But instead of healing, what usually happens is this cycle of re-traumatization. You might find yourself repeating these patterns where you label intense emotional drama as passion, or you call emotional unavailability maybe distance, independence. Your nervous system, in this kind of perverse way, can actually get addicted to those dynamics, mistaking the anxiety, the inconsistency, the ups and downs for chemistry, when really it's trauma reenactment playing out. And this is such a critical warning. Until you really wake up to this pattern, you're likely going to spend your adult life trying to resolve childhood pain through one romantic failure after another.
Wow. And that unconscious drive, seeking that familiar pain rooted in those early lessons, it often shows up as this deep, deep fear of vulnerability, which is kind of the core of our next insight into what really suffocates love, vulnerability. It's the absolute lifeblood of real connection, right? Yet so many people are just absolutely terrified of it. Our sources, again and again, they show individuals hiding behind these elaborate masks of confidence, maybe strength, or even perfection. And it's all because of this deep, often paralyzing fear. Fear of being unloved, maybe not being enough, or just utter rejection if their true self, their messy, imperfect self, were ever genuinely known.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture of intimate relationships, this fear of being truly seen, it literally strangles intimacy, just cuts off the oxygen.
Right.
When you're constantly performing, right?
Yeah.
Acting a part instead of letting your authentic self show up. You just can't connect deeply. It's impossible. You cannot build that lasting soul-level intimacy without revealing your actual spirit. So partners might share a life, a house, the bills, daily routines, but their spirits, they never actually touch. It's a profound tragedy, isn't it, when you think about it? Both people might be desperately craving that deep, resonant connection, but both are just too afraid to go first, too scared to be the one to drop the mask. And this inaction, this kind of silent standoff, it eventually breeds this quiet, simmering resentment. Not even resentment for what the other person did necessarily, but for what they never dared to become together. It really signals this fundamental breakdown of trust in the safety of the relationship itself.
That fear of revealing ourselves, it often plays out really profoundly in how we express our core energies in a relationship, masculine and feminine energies. Which brings us to our next critical point. We live in a time where these concepts, masculine and feminine energy, are often misunderstood, sometimes even mocked. But our exploration into the dynamics of attraction, it really highlights that love, like true magnetic love. It thrives on what you might call energetic polarity, just briefly. Healthy masculine energy at its best. It's
Okay.
about direction, yeah. Grounded presence, strength, maybe confident, loving leadership. And healthy feminine energy, on the other hand, is more about flow, emotional depth, connection, nurturing, that kind of thing.
Okay, so this raises a really fascinating and I think urgent question. What happens when this vital energetic dance goes wrong, when it gets distorted? Our material points to this widespread distortion or even suppression of these energies in a lot of modern relationships. You see many women, for instance, maybe because of societal pressures or maybe past hurts, suppressing their inherent feminine energy. They might become rigidly controlling, maybe overly critical or just deeply defensive. They fear that surrendering to flow or emotional openness means they're weak. But without that healthy feminine input, that emotional wisdom and fluidity, relationships can become really combative. They lack the very warmth and depth needed for true connection. And conversely, you see many men may be conditioned to suppress their feelings or just perform strength. They disconnect from a healthy, grounded masculinity. They might become passive, maybe indecisive, or even emotionally needy, perhaps trying way too hard to please instead of leading with authentic presence. And without that strong masculine grounding, their partners can feel, well, unprotected, unsupported, or they just lose trust. This energetic imbalance, it absolutely kills attraction, dead. It transforms the relationship from this, magnetic, passionate dance into a tiresome negotiation, or worse, a draining power struggle. And that leads to this profound deadness, this resentment that can feel almost impossible to shake. It's a silent killer of passion, truly.
Yeah, the deadness. Brings it to another critical element, doesn't it? The shattered mirror. Think back to the start of any relationship, the very beginning. At the start, we're all kind of mirrors for each other, reflecting back the best parts. We're captivated, we laugh at the same jokes, we finish each other's wow. We dream together, we listen so intently, we connect deeply. We naturally reflect the other person's hopes, their fears. And this mirroring, it creates this incredibly powerful emotional intimacy. It makes us feel profoundly seen, truly known, deeply cherished.
And what's often just heartbreakingly clear, looking at how things unfold, is how quickly that mirror can shatter. Over time, for so many couples, partners just stop reflecting. They stop truly seeing each other. They stop listening. Instead of genuinely honoring who their partner is right now and who they're becoming, they get fixated on who they want their partner to be. They start projecting their own stuff. They judge, they criticize, or maybe they just ignore, tune out. The mirror shatters. And with it, so often does that emotional bond. Here's a really powerful warning from the studies. People rarely leave relationships just because they fall out of love, in some abstract sense. They leave because they stop feeling seen, they stop feeling mirrored, they stop feeling emotionally held, understood. So to sustain love, you have to actively continue entering your partner's world, reflecting their essence, their fears, their hopes. You have to be their evolving mirror, not just in that intoxicating beginning honeymoon phase, but always. If you fail to do this, your partner will slowly vanish right before your eyes, spiritually, if not physically. And eventually, the bond will break.
That loss of feeling seen, it often feeds directly into our next subtle yet absolutely devastating killer. Insecurity. It doesn't usually scream, it whispers. But its effects are just profound. Our sources illustrate its manifestations in so many painful ways, like crippling jealousy, debilitating clinginess, or maybe that overwhelming need to people-please all the time, passive aggressiveness, that constant exhausting need for validation from outside. It's fundamentally this belief deep down that you are not enough, which then tragically forces your partner into this impossible job of endlessly trying to prove that you are.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, insecurity creates this terrible paradox. It desperately demands love, but it actually cannot truly receive it. It consistently misinterprets genuine affection, sees it as obligation, maybe. It takes moments of silence or space as outright rejection. It sabotages good moments because it's always assuming betrayal is just around the corner. And when both partners are struggling with deep insecurity, oh man, love becomes this painful, exhausting transaction of wounds. Each person is desperately trying to fill their own emptiness through the other person, but they only end up draining each other dry. This critical warning, it really can't be overstated. No partner, no matter how loving, how devoted they are, can permanently heal your self-doubt or make you feel truly worthy. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it, right?
Yeah.
No matter how much water you pour in, it never feels full. So until you do the inner work, find your worth independently, you will, maybe inadvertently, destroy the very love you crave. You block the vulnerability, the emotional intimacy that's necessary for it to actually flourish. Insecurity is also why so many fall into that trap we talked about earlier, confusing pain for love. Because their nervous system is it's used to it. It feels familiar from the past.
Right. And that inability to truly receive love, or maybe even give it cleanly. It brings us to a really common misconception. People love to say relationships fail due to communication problems. It's become the standard excuse, almost a cliche. But our deep dive into the underlying issues, it reveals that's really just a surface explanation. The real problem, as the research highlights time and again, is far, far deeper than simply not talking enough.
Yeah, so this raises the really important question. What's the actual root cause then, if it's not just communication? The studies consistently point to fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being too much, or maybe fear of being not enough. This pervasive fear, it just paralyzes honest dialogue. It leads people to lie, maybe by omission, to withhold crucial feelings or information, or simply to avoid difficult conversations altogether. So they don't say, ouch, that really hurt me. They say, I'm fine, but you can feel the resentment simmering under the surface. They don't say, I feel unseen and unheard right now. They might lash out with something totally unrelated, like you never help around the house. Yeah, they certainly don't say, I feel scared, I need you. They might just shut down, respond with a dismissive whatever. Real communication. It isn't just about talking more. It's about revealing your deepest self. It's about being truly vulnerable. And that requires profound emotional safety. You have to feel safe to be real. Without that safety, couples just fall into these defensive patterns or crippling silence, fighting over the dishes while the real wounds, fear of abandonment, unmet needs, unspoken hurts just fester and grow underneath. And the relationship, starved of truth, starved of genuine connection, it just suffocates.
And finally, let's tackle this widely held belief. It's one our sources repeatedly challenge, and it's profoundly dangerous. People often come into relationships thinking that love, just love itself, will fix everything. They enter thinking, pure love will magically overcome all the obstacles, heal all the wounds, sustain them forever. But it won't. It just won't. Our material strongly suggests that love isn't some kind of cure-all. It's this powerful, almost wild force. And like any powerful force, it has to be guided. It has to be understood. It has to be handled with immense maturity.
What's fascinating and frankly sobering here is that without emotional intelligence, without deep self-awareness, and without that crucial inner healing we've been touching on, love becomes like a wildfire. Yeah, passionate and consuming at first, absolutely, but ultimately destructive in the end. This is a really stark warning that just echoes through so much of the relationship psychology we explore. You can deeply, truly love someone and still hurt them, still betray them, or just be completely unprepared, ill-equipped to build something healthy and sustainable with them. Love isn't enough by itself. Maturity is the key ingredient. And maturity demands that you face your own wounds, that you take radical, unflinching responsibility for your own triggers, that you start blaming your partner for your reactions, and you start doing the hard, often painful work of healing yourself. It requires you to stop looking for a rescuer in your partner and start becoming your own protector, your own source of validation. Until you really undertake this essential inner work, love will keep failing you, not because it isn't real, not because it isn't powerful, but because you are not truly ready to steward its immense power responsibly.
So, what does all this mean for you listening right now? Our deep dive today consistently reveals this truth. Relationships don't fail because love isn't potent enough. They fail because we often, maybe unknowingly, refuse to do the deep, sometimes uncomfortable work that's required to actually hold that power. We've traced these patterns, haven't we? Bringing childhood trauma directly into our intimate partnerships, chasing that familiar pain and tragically calling it passion, hiding behind masks and pretending it's connection, silencing our own true needs and mistakenly calling it sacrifice or compromise, and, tragically, avoiding emotional responsibility while maybe even calling it strength.
The final warning, really distilled from everything we've discussed, it's strikingly clear. Love is sacred. It truly is. It's perhaps the most profound, most transformative human experience we can have. But without self-awareness, it so often just becomes a battleground, filled with projections and unmet expectations. Without genuine vulnerability, it becomes a hollow performance. Looks good on the outside, maybe, but empty within. And without that crucial, courageous inner healing, it becomes nothing more than a painful repetition, a replay of everything you swore you'd never become or never tolerate.
So it's really time to look inwards. With kindness, yes, but also with unflinching honesty. Ask yourself, why am I truly drawn to this person? Is it healthy attraction or something else? What part of my past, what old story am I maybe unconsciously trying to fix or resolve through them? Where in my current relationship, or maybe past ones, am I still afraid to be truly seen? Perhaps even afraid to be seen by myself? And ask this, In what subtle, or maybe not so subtle ways, have I unknowingly abandoned myself, left my own core needs, my own fears unaddressed?
Until you bravely step into those questions and really begin to explore the answers, you will, heartbreakingly, likely keep failing at love. You'll keep mistaking suffering for depth, intensity for intimacy, and you will, in turn, keep breaking hearts, including, most importantly, your own, in a cycle that can feel absolutely inescapable. The path forward, the one illuminated by the very dynamics we've explored today, is, well, it's unambiguous. Heal first, do the work, then love. That, and really only that, is the way this story ends well.